crochet friends, it's me, Jonah, and Yarnspirations is sponsoring today's show and tell. And I'll be showing you how to make a very unique project. Here it is. It's the Bernat Easy Plaid is Rad blanket. It uses both loop yarn, where you only use your hands, and an additional overlay of slip stitch with a regular yarn and 15mm crochet hook for a really unique and beautiful appearance. So the first yarn you'll need is the Bernat Easy loop yarn in the stripes kind, because it's 52 loops across, and then you can go off of your colors based on that. And then for the striping on top, you'll need one Bernat blanket Ogo in a contrasting color so that it gives you that really interesting plaid effect. And for this one, I'll be using this array of blues on top of that tan and cream color. And then you'll also need a pair of scissors, and you will need a 16mm crochet hook, but as long as it's around there, you'll be okay, because of the way it's worked and how you're able to easily change and modify the gauge of your chain slip stitches. And again, today I'll be showing you how to make the backing and also how to do that slip stitch overlay. So let's get started, because this is a really unique and interesting project. So here's how the blanket is worked. It starts off right here, and you start by making the backing. And then you just work back and forth until it's the desired length as stated in the pattern. And then you come back and work these rows, or columns I should say, of vertical slip stitches, which is essentially just embedding a chain stitch into your fabric. And then you space them out 4 stitches and go again, space it out 4 stitches, and keep repeating. So here's my second sample that I have going, and you can see that when you're working with this type of yarn, that it automatically stripes it out itself. You can see, if I lay it out flat again, how it just stripes and stripes. And that's because this yarn is designed to have 52 loops in every stripe row. So then you just count out 52 loops and just knit back and forth. And that's how you work the base. But I'm going to show you, in case you're not familiar with loop yarn, quickly, but also in depth, how to do the knit stitch. So I ended with brown, so my next stitch should be white or cream. So then I'll pull the working loop through the live loop right here, just taking the next loop of the yarn and pulling it through the next loop of the fabric. And you'll be able to see how this is formed because you're taking this loop and pushing it through the next loop, and that's how you get this continual knit stitch, by placing a V inside of a V. And as you practice, you'll be able to work faster and faster and be able to pull up your loops. But what you want to make sure is that you don't accidentally end up twisting loops. Like right here, this one's a little twisted. So if I pull it up like this, you can actually see that it will look different because it's twisted. So you want to make sure that you keep your loops up straight. And you'll be able to do this just by feel after a while. But remember, if you need to see it again, you can rewind the video and slow it down back when I did that more in-depth view. But what I next want to show you is that as you knit across, like I said, the yarn will have 52 loops because that's the way it was designed and made by Yarnspirations. And look at that, we already made it a row, and I was going slower to show you as well, so you'll be able to see how quickly you can work up this blanket. And then in the last stitch, I'll work it, And you can see now it'll be time to switch to this tan color. So now I'll be going back the other direction by pushing the loops attached to the yarn through the loops attached to my project. And then I'll be going back the opposite direction from where I just came. And keep in mind there should be 52 loops, so the striping should be perfect this row, alternating A, B, A, B, A, B. And then you'll continue doing this, just working back and forth and swapping out your yarn balls after you use them up. And then eventually it'll be time to work on your slip stitch overlay. And the slip stitch overlay may seem difficult or may appear as though it'd be really difficult to make, but it's not. And you'll find that out as soon as we get started. So just loop your way back across. And since this is 52 loops, that'll be 104 stitches when you combine the two rows together. Okay, I'm coming up on the end of this row and you can already see the contrasting color coming up. Okay, and now let's say that this was the end of the blanket and I just happened to finish it here. So what I would next do is just pretend bind off by pulling my loops through. And of course when you're actually binding off, you bind off in the same direction as your last row so that you can pull this yarn through your bind off, but I'm just doing a few stitches in this direction because I'm going to show you how to do that slip stitch overlay next. But when you're not doing a sample just like this and making an actual project, do it the same direction as your last row. But the bind off's the least important part of this. So you can see how we have these continual rows, and then down here you have where you started and how all these loops lay flat. So if I set this yarn more off to the side, I have to next pull up my ogo. And you can see that of course it's in this circular form or shape. And to get it started, I have to kind of open up the middle here, and you see that there's a plastic tie right there in the center. Well, you got to be careful not to snip the yarn, but to snip that. And then reach inside of either side and try and grab it. It can be a little fiddly sometimes, and it's not necessary to grab it right away, but it is helpful on occasion to do that. So you just got to look around for it. Oh, I found it. It's right here. And then just pull that through. And then you can set that aside and throw it away. You won't need that. And you're all set to go. So now I'm going to start by taking this color. But let's say I actually wanted to start with this center color here, or this lighter color. So what you would do is you would go right here and just pull at the color section and then cut the yarn on either side of this knot here to join. And there you go. Now you have access to all three colors, 1, 2, and 3. So if I set this aside now and pull out my 15 millimeter crochet hook, it's time to start my slip stitch overlay. So I'm going to zoom in slightly here just for the first few stitches so I can give you the best idea possible of how to work this stitch. So take your crochet hook and then go 4 stitches in. Count 4 stitches in from this edge one. So 1 right here, 2, 3, and 4. And then ideally you're going to place a slip knot on your hook. Just nice and simple. I'll show you that again. Place a slip knot on your hook. And then after you count 4 stitches in, go to the space in between the 4th and the 5th stitch. Right in here. And then pull up a loop and slip stitch. And then go to the space right above it. Yarn over in the back of your work and pull through and pull up. And back, grab that loop, pull it forward. And do the next stitch in the back, grab it and pull it forward. The next stitch in the back, grab it and pull it forward. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit here to give you a wider view, a wider angle. So it's very helpful, and you should hold your hand underneath the back of the work here. And just keep, it's kind of like putting a chain in the fabric. But you're just working one every row. And make sure to stay loose about it. Then go up one more. And pull through. And that is how you work this chain slip stitch overlay. And then sometimes they tend to go a little bit to the right, but that's what'll happen with this because of the way that they're working it, and it's getting pulled from behind through up another layer of fabric. But there's one color. Let's work a few more stitches, and then let's say we want to switch to our other color. So you got to do the whole striping row out of this color. But then let's say you wanted to switch colors now. You would just cut your yarn underneath. And then let's say this is the top, you would just pull up. Except you'd actually do this at the top of your blanket up here. And then you can set that previous color aside and grab the next one. And I like to go in descending order based on the darkness or lightness of the color. So this is the medium shade out of this group. So then I'll start by putting a slip knot on my hook and pulling off some extra yarn so I have enough slack. And then I'll go over one stitch and I'll start repeating the same process. So into the next stitch up and pull through, into the next stitch up and pull through, and pull through, and pull through again, and again. And sometimes it's helpful to stick your thumb through the work and actually hold on to your chain to give you more leverage. But then you can see I already got that part done. So I could cut my work here again and then grab out my last color, because you have to have 3 colors for this blanket. And I'll pull up this strand right here, and then I'll take my last color and make a slip knot out of it. And then I'll go one more stitch over. And start pulling through the loops and going upwards once again. And then let's say this was the top. I know it's not, but for this case it will be for all intents and purposes. Then you'd pull up again, and that's how you work the striping. But what you would need to do is you'll need to repeat this, but you'll need to skip 4 stitches. So I would skip these 4, and then right in this section right here is where I would start the next repeat of 3. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, and then I would skip these 4 and repeat. And that's how you achieve this plaid look on this blanket. I hope after today's show and tell, you learned how easy it is to incorporate a slip stitch overlay into your loop yarn fabric, especially the knit stitch or the garter stitch or stitches of that same nature. And please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Jonah's Hands as well as Yarn Inspirations. And crochet away, friends.